Thank you. Welcome. Do you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Thank you for being here and filling the gaps of my loneliness of today. Social network analysis, Italian Parliament, or what went wrong in your life to be here on Sunday afternoon. I know it's hot outside, and Florence is a good city, and I will try to convince you that it's a good talk. So I work for Open Police. What is Open Police? It's a no-profit foundation, independent, that collects data, analyzes data about the governments, public administrations, and parliament, and all the staff organization, people related to civic organization and stuff. It's from 2007, 2006, roughly, and the core of this organization is data journalism, but also some products are more oriented to advanced data analytics. I don't want to say advanced, but data analytics more related to something that maybe here you can understand and get. So what we do, open data web application, data journalism activities, data analysis, and the core of this organization is to promote transparency, good public practices, and activism. It is known that here in Italy, but I don't know outside in foreign countries, there is few knowledge on how to transmit data from governments, for public administrations, because data is not consistent, data is not updated. Each organization has its way to store data, and even talking about the same thing. So some ministry has its way, other ministries had other ways. So we try to filter this information and make it available to the people, to the civic organization that on top of it can do other analysis and insights. What are our main techniques? From a technology point of view, we work with Django, especially for admin interfaces, for providing products for small companies, Neo4j for network analysis, and it's the topic of today. Gephyr, I don't know the right pronunciation, for pre-analysis, always for network analysis and stuff, including for front end and yes, and a good makeup artist because it's really needed. Well, this landed on my mind, this joke. Anyway, some examples of products we make. We make like Open PNRR and RR.it, that where we track and monitor the next generation EU recovery plan for Italy. And I don't know if you actually know what it is. It's like fundings that the European Union is giving to each countries after the pandemic era. And we're trying to monitor and the deadlines and the projects related. Open Parlamento is where we track the Italian governments and the houses, parliamentarians, and in the next days we're releasing the new version of this portal, Open Bilancio, where we track financial reports of the Italian municipalities, and our core product is Open Policy, that is where we do data journalism. Well, I'm Mario, and I do data something. You choose which one. I don't care, and I'm diligent. I switch between 2Ds, and well, actually, drag queens. I do love drag queens. Anyway, not who, but why are you here? Well, we try to pick the Italian parliamentarians and how do they vote with Django, networkX, all the stuff that maybe you already know. We try to prepare a network analysis that goes from that visualization that maps the majority and the position of the current Senate to something more like this, where you can track how people inside the House of the Senate relate through them. And I will say how we calculate this. Briefly, I don't know how many of you are Italians and how many Italians do know actually how the parliament system works. Briefly, we have two chambers on the same level, same powers. Each law has to pass on with the same text, must be voted by the two chambers. And, well, actually the government is not directly nominated, but it's the President of the Republic that nominates the government, and it has to have the trust of the two houses. What is our solution for monitoring gov and parliament data? Well, actually, as I said before, we use a Django backend solution with batch tasks that runs daily, infra-daily, monthly. We developed an Angular project, not for the general public, but for our editorial board, for the data journalists, which are not used to work with SQL or the other stuff, and try to track and change data. Metabase, BigQuery for pre-analyzing data. What is for our solution for analyzing data? As I said, we have the classical pattern, extract, transformation, loading. I want to focus on the, we collect many data. I want to focus especially on the data we collect for the parliament. We have public endpoints that the governments has made available. There are Sparkle endpoints. Other techniques are web scraping techniques. And we then collect them. They are into a Postgres DB and then sync with the Neo4j and the Linkurious. And here we analyze them through Neo4j as well. But today I don't want to focus to Neo4j because it's not a Neo4j conference. It's more Pythonic, Python stuff. So that's our pipelines and how this works. Well, here I want to showcase roughly how it's pretty basic. We have data about the elections, about the politicians, about the organizations, so the municipalities, the agency, public, private companies that has something related to stuff that is of the general debate. Areas, votings, and we try to make this data, obviously what the government doesn't make is to do it like a consistent updated when data is available, because it's really hard. I don't know your experiences, but I worked 2 years in private companies for a consulting company and working with, maybe something more familiar. I think it's a bit harder because data is very, very shit, is very complicated and to understand and to let them speak, because the general approach is just to make the data reachable and not usable. So, elections data, yes, web scraping. What about voting data? As I said, Sparkle endpoints to retrieve RDF data. And yes, as I said, integration batch processes with models, as we have the groups inside the parliaments, the acts that are into the pipelines of the Italian system and political parties, and how do they relate amongst them. What we have done to do this, we developed some libraries. One of these is the OETL. It's something you might use, I don't know. It's a minimal opinionated, object-oriented ETL framework. It's something I find quite useful because my 2 years in the consulting company was basically doing ETL and this stuff. So I started working inside this company with this mindset. So this is a library where we developed our needs. So some extractors that are for CSV, Sparkle, SQL extractor, and so on. For example, for the SQL extractor we use for MySQL, PostgreSQL. So and for the so it follows the general approach: extract, transformation. You can use a class that inherits our class base. It's pretty naive. And the loaders, the CSV, the Django bulk loader, the Django update or create loader if you work with the ORM of Django and like this. So we usually the approach of getting for the voting data from Sparkle endpoints through a Django update or create loader, since we use the Django as a loader. Yeah, that's the snippet of code. It's pretty easy. You have an ETL class, and you can the extractor and the loader, and use the one we find specific and customized for this approach. Another library we developed is the Django Popular library. Well, actually, my boss developed them many years ago. It's a Django Popolo. It's a Django-based implementation of Popolo's Open Government Data Specification. What is Popolo? Open Government Data Specification is something that some organization has said to, if you want to work with data inside the governments or something, the public administration, you have to follow some patterns, like you have to have a model that is called organization. It has to have these features. So to not only to have a system that is integrated in our system, or something that could be usable for other companies that maybe are working in other countries. So we are going to the main core of this talk, is the social network analysis briefly. I don't know how many of you already know about the social network analysis concepts, but I just want to say I don't have a PhD on social network analysis. It's something I studied during my master university degree and something I'm using during my job. So, yeah, don't consider myself like someone who is a person who knows everything. But I find it very useful for this use case, for this case study. And we have nodes, we have links like friendship and so on. So that's like a network, and you have oriented, not oriented. Friendship is a link where if I'm friend with you, you are a friend with me, or if I have debts with someone, I have debts with someone. No, the other has maybe is a creditor, so it's a kind of different link, weight or weighted. What we are using here, is a one-mode network where we have just one type of node that are people, and weighted and not oriented, that tracks how people inside the parliaments somehow connected. This is just want to showcase the Neo4j because I cited it in my abstract. Yeah, some basic concepts of network analysis degree, how many links you a node have between, says how many times a node is in the shortest path between two nodes, and closeness is a KPI, a metric that on average it says how much close I am to the other nodes. Okay, so here is a snippet of something we have in our databases, and it's the health system, part of the health system in our region in Italy. It's Umbria, and I don't know, yes, yeah, you can see this is if I'm not wrong, a private organization who works in the health system, And this is a person who has worked inside another organization. Here, that's an example of a two-mode network because we have two types of nodes. But in our case, it will be just the nodes of persons. How do you store data here? Many types, agency metric, agency list. We will use, for our case, the agency metric, so that maps if it's 1 or if it's 0, if there is a link or not. If weighted, it will be something different other than 0 and 1. So I just want to say something about how I developed this, this case study is not only think about the developing, but starting from psychologists and sociologists. And that's not something I did after I developed it. It's something I wanted to take into account while I was developing it. It's something I heard some days before about a creativity talk we had. So it's something Weber is a sociologist that worked about how human social action works, gave me some ideas on how to put it into my developing process. So I don't want to dive into these aspects of sociologists, but I just want to say to you that something I found it very interesting as my developing process. So from a mathematical approach, it's very simple. First grade school, maybe, we define weight metrics of the categories a person, of the categories of voting inside the parliament. For sake of simplicity, I just cited 5 of them. Yes, no, abstain, secret. So based on our, if you has voted yes, for me is a 100% link, and where is 0.7 is if two people have voted abstained. It's not as strong enough. Like I acted like a negative approach. It's saying yes and saying no. It's like more a passive approach. Just like I was absent. Why was I absent during the vote? Because we were together, we want to tell something, to tell a story about the group we're into, because we don't like how they're approaching or they're doing things. So I'm not voting or just stochastic. So it's something you have to take into account. And this is the tricky part, because it's something very subjective, and you have to tune these parameters. Yes, auto-encoding of voting people, it's a person per categories, and then, yeah, that's very easy stuff. You get a matrix of the auto-encoding for its transpose multiplied inside by this weight matrix. Yeah, I know it's very it's very naive, and we have many matrices. And we sum them through all the set of the votings, and we apply the activation function, because something that has occurred like 60 days ago is not as strong enough as something that's occurring today, or based on the day I'm analyzing the network. It could be also another day other than today. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Use networkX library, and you build this with the agents matrix, and we store the attributes to this graph. Okay, so how we analyze this particular scenario? I just like to for me, it's very like when you go to do a TC in a hospital. Since the weight, everyone is linked to other, because the difference is on the weight of the members. It's like we are doing layers based on the filter we want to use. So as you can see here, we I'm moving my filter to see how this kind of molecule is moving, applying a particular algorithm, the Dispatcher-Manner-Reingold algorithm, and see who, at a certain level, in this case, who is the person that it's like a bridge to the majority and the opposition. So some results on previous legislature, like the 17 on Senate, because here in Italy, Senate is some place where tricky things happens. This is like the network during the period of the elected government. I'd just like to focus on this one. This is Lega, a five-star movement, and it's really interesting because some of them from the five-star movement then eventually have moved after the day of the analysis. I'm not saying that is prediction, but just a fact that then decided to move to another party. So it's really interesting to tell a story other than predict, because I don't want to say this. That's Renzi era, and yeah, that's how the network was then. What about the current legislature? We have the center-right, right wing of the parliament, and the opposition which is five-star movement and left, central-left wing. And this is what you have seen before, and it's pretty interesting for our journalists, because there is a party which is called the Italia Viva, Calenda, and so on, and there is the debate stating if it's like an hanger, a crutch of the majority. Are they helping them somehow, somewhere? Don't know why. Well, here you can see how this position. It's on the first line, so closest to the majority. You have this party. Then backwards, you have the five-star movement, and then here you have the Democratic Party. So. As I said, I'm not talking about very hard stuff. It's something that we find very useful for us to tell a story. You cannot say that they're helping them. It's just something that is on the set of the things that help data journalists. It's not only related on data. It's also with data and with the knowledge of the argument you have. And it's pretty interesting, as long as you go higher with the filter, how the two sets, the two molecules, I like to think of it like a chemistry, biological approach, how they move. And you can see the opposition is like, here, it's like the Azione Italia Viva Calenda, it's a party from center, left center. I don't, okay. And they're moving away, and the Democratic Party and the five-star movement higher. The Calenda Renzi party, the one I said before, has gone with a set, and the other two parties are like mitosis, meiosis. I don't know if you know how we were born. And it's different from the majority that is moving like a unique entity. And that's what's pretty different from the previous legislature, where inside the majority you have different, you have like latent in groups, individuals that are shown through the votes. So my conclusions is, as I said, majority seems to move like a single entity. Now, it's the first year, so it's something maybe you can see after some time. What we'd like to do, we haven't done yet, is to see it like a dynamic approach. So during time, that's very interesting and more challenging. And another problem is the filter, the upper bound of this filter is going to infinite, it's endless. So we have to find something that standardizes this metrics, because each day we had new votings. So, thank you, and I'd like to say we all born naked, the race is data, now I can quit my job.
Thank you very much. I have a question about what's your favorite takeaway, like not opinion, like what have you, the pattern you have seen in all the data you gathered, you analyzed?
Do you mean what I've seen in this particular case?
Yeah, in this
so
particular case.
something interesting. Yeah, something interesting maybe is the people were inside a group is called a mixed group. Okay, so once you, inside our database, we have like a field who says who is in the majority, who is in the opposition. It's based on how they voted in the trusting votes. But you can see someone that has not given the direct trust on the facts is closer to the majority than others, than the opposition, which we might expect to find this person.
Thank you, really cool. I have another question here, but there is someone in the room.
I wonder, when you share this analysis with traditional journalists, how are they perceived by, I don't know, traditional newspaper journalists? Do they perceive the value of this data approach? What's the reaction?
No, the reaction is pretty good, because they already work with networks. So we have something that's called power maps. So it's very specific to some topic, like nominees of public agencies. And so we, in the article, we showcase the networks through Linkurious. That's the tool we use as a tool for showcases. So it's a foundation, it's a company that's used to work with data, and we work with data. So it's not something that find very far. So they already work with it. Now with this kind of depth, because it's something that's just no visualization, it's something a bit more.
It's all the time we have. Thank you very much.
Thank
it was
you.
Really interesting.